Peter had dreamed of Alaska since he was a young boy. Growing up near Jasper, Alberta, he developed an early passion for adventure, spending countless weekends exploring the Rockies. But Alaska had always felt different. A distant land shrouded in mystery, vast beyond imagination, and filled with breathtaking natural wonders. He longed to stand beneath its wide-open skies, to lose himself among mountains, so massive they made everything else feel small. Meeting MacKenzie felt like destiny to Peter. She was vibrant, free-spirited, and adventurous, qualities that matched perfectly with his own. Their relationship quickly blossomed into a passionate romance. In each other, they found not just love, but a shared dream, hiking and camping together in the untouched wilderness of Denali National Park. Their wedding was simple but beautiful, held in a small meadow beneath towering spruce trees, attended only by their closest family and friends. As the ceremony concluded, they shared a knowing look. Their real adventure would begin in Alaska. Arriving at Anchorage, Peter and MacKenzie immediately fell in love with the stunning landscape. Snow-capped mountains soared majestically above emerald forests, while crystal-clear lakes and streams reflected skies of impossible blue. As they drove north toward Denali, excitement built steadily between them. Reaching the national park gates, they could barely contain their joy. Denali itself rose on the horizon, a magnificent monolith piercing the sky. Peter smiled at MacKenzie, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. He had dreamed of this moment, but having her at his side made it perfect. Their hike along the Savage River Loop Trail was magical, far exceeding their expectations. The late summer tundra burst with life, wildflowers splashing vivid purples, reds, and yellows across the valleys. Walking hand in hand, Peter and MacKenzie spoke of their future together, their hopes and dreams blending seamlessly beneath the Alaskan sky. Every conversation brought them closer, every shared laugh echoing off distant mountain slopes, binding their hearts tighter than ever before. They stopped frequently to admire views, holding each other in quiet awe as Denali stood serenely above it all, watching over them. As afternoon became evening, Peter and MacKenzie decided to set up camp. Wanting closeness and solitude, they selected a remote location deeper within the forest, far from other campers. Towering spruce and aspen surrounded the small clearing they chose, providing both shelter and privacy. It was perfect. They pitched their tent and arranged their fire pit. Night fell gently, stars emerging one by one, sparkling brightly against the velvet darkness. They sat close by the fire, its warmth washing over them, flames casting playful shadows upon their smiling faces. Peter retrieved a chilled bottle of champagne he'd packed specially for their honeymoon. It seemed a fitting celebration for the happiest moment of his life. Holding the bottle, Peter gazed deeply into MacKenzie's eyes. Firelight danced across her features, highlighting the softness of her skin and the sparkle in her eyes. He drew a breath, suddenly overcome with emotion. "MacKenzie," he began softly, sincerity heavy in his voice. "I honestly can't believe how lucky I am. You're everything I've ever dreamed of and more. You're not just my wife, you're my whole world. I'll always stand beside you, no matter what." MacKenzie's eyes glistened, tears threatening at the edges as she squeezed his hand tightly. "Peter, I love you more deeply than I ever imagined possible. Forever isn't long enough." He smiled warmly, heart swelling with joy as he popped the champagne cork, sending it flying into the darkness. Laughter bubbled between them, bright and carefree. But suddenly, MacKenzie froze. A low, menacing growl rumbled beneath the cheerful crackle of the campfire, sending a chill through her body. "What was that?" she whispered, eyes wide, scanning the shadowy perimeter nervously. Peter shook his head, smiling reassuringly. Just the forest, sweetheart. Nothing to worry about. Though uneasy, MacKenzie trusted him, forcing herself to relax. Peter poured champagne into their glasses, handing one to her gently. Raising his glass, he spoke again, his voice steady but filled with emotion. To forever and a day. Their glasses clinked delicately, the sweet sound resonating softly through the quiet night. MacKenzie smiled lovingly, her earlier fear forgotten. Peter lifted his glass, about to taste their perfect moment. He didn't get the chance. Gray fur exploded from the shadows, slamming violently into Peter, knocking the champagne glass from his hand. It shattered against the ground as he was hurled backward onto the dirt. MacKenzie screamed, watching helplessly as a monstrous creature pinned her husband down, razor-sharp claws ripping into his chest. Blood spattered violently, glistening red in the firelight. The beast was enormous, 7 feet tall, its muscular frame covered in coarse, dark gray fur. Burning amber eyes flashed with primal intelligence as it snarled viciously, revealing gleaming rows of jagged, blood-stained teeth. "Run, MacKenzie," Peter shouted desperately, agony etched deeply into his features. But she couldn't move. Frozen by fear, MacKenzie could only stare, tears streaming down her face, body trembling violently. Her mind screamed for escape, but her limbs refused to respond. The Dogman mauled Peter mercilessly, seeming to savor his tortured cries. It tore deep gouges into his arms and chest, blood pooling darkly beneath his shaking body. Peter writhed helplessly beneath the beast's crushing weight, eyes pleading desperately with MacKenzie to flee, to save herself. But she remained paralyzed, inching backward in slow, trembling movements, sobbing uncontrollably as she witnessed the brutal destruction of her soulmate. Peter's screams echoed endlessly, filling her ears with unbearable anguish. His cries grew weaker, reduced to choked sobs. Blood soaked the earth, staining it crimson beneath the relentless attack. Finally, Peter's gaze met hers, eyes filled with fading strength. "MacKenzie," he whispered weakly, voice barely audible. "I love you." Peter's whispered words hung in the air for just a heartbeat, a desperate declaration of love that would be his last. In the very next instant, the Dogman plunged its powerful jaws deep into Peter's throat, tearing flesh and sinew. MacKenzie watched helplessly as the life drained rapidly from her husband's eyes, his limbs jerking spasmodically before growing completely still. A choking scream rose up from MacKenzie's chest, yet no sound escaped her throat. Her entire body was in shock, leaving her trembling against the damp forest floor. Her breath came in short, frantic gasps, eyes glued to the horrifying sight unfolding mere feet from her. The creature stood hunched over Peter's lifeless body, blood dripping thickly from its snarling maw. It tilted its head, regarding MacKenzie with an almost curious expression, before returning attention to its gruesome feast. The sickening crunch of bone filled the air. Each nauseating snap seemed to reverberate through MacKenzie's very soul. Her eyes brimmed with tears, blurring the monstrous silhouette before her, though not enough to conceal its ruthless brutality. After agonizing moments, the creature paused, lifting its blood-soaked muzzle once again toward her. Its luminous amber eyes glittered in the dancing firelight, fixing her with a gaze filled with cruel intelligence. With a low growl that rumbled from deep within its chest, it turned fully toward her, taking a step closer. MacKenzie whimpered softly, her mind racing through 1,000 nightmarish possibilities. This was how she would die, she was sure of it. Torn apart beneath the same merciless claws that had ended Peter's life. Her body pressed harder against the trunk of the towering spruce, feeling its rough bark digging painfully into her spine. Yet the pain was nothing compared to the primal fear now consuming her. The beast moved forward slowly, almost leisurely, each step heavy and menacing. She could see its powerful muscles rippling beneath its dark gray fur, its jagged teeth still glistening with her husband's blood. Her vision began to darken as panic constricted her chest, lungs aching from shallow, rapid breaths. The Dogman stopped inches from her, its enormous frame towering above, blocking out the stars above her head. She could feel the heat radiating from its hulking form, smell the pungent stench of blood and raw meat emanating from its mouth. MacKenzie shut her eyes tightly, bracing herself for the agony she knew was coming, her mind spinning through images of Peter's mutilated body. But the creature didn't strike. Instead, she felt its wet snout brush gently against her cheek, inhaling her scent deeply. She shuddered violently beneath the horrific touch, tears streaming unchecked down her face. Her heart thundered so loud in her ears, she thought it might burst. Opening her eyes in terrified disbelief, she saw the creature pull back slightly, studying her with a disturbing curiosity. Then, without warning, the Dogman's black lips curled back into a dreadful smile. It huffed softly, a sound heavy with dark amusement, before abruptly turning away. With startling speed, it bolted back into the darkness, melting into the shadows as swiftly as it had appeared. MacKenzie sat in shock, her body still shaking violently. The campfire had dimmed, casting flickering shadows across the campsite and Peter's desecrated remains. Time lost all meaning as she stared into the dark, silent forest, waiting helplessly for the beast to return and finish what it started. But the minutes passed, stretching into a silent eternity, and the creature did not reappear. Only after what felt like forever did MacKenzie's hand begin to move, fumbling for the cell phone tucked deep into her pocket. With numb fingers, she managed to dial emergency services. Her voice trembled uncontrollably, a broken whisper barely audible through her sobs. When park rangers finally arrived, they found her curled in a ball, shaking and sobbing hysterically beside the smoldering fire. They gently guided her away from the horrifying scene, carefully covering Peter's remains, shielding MacKenzie from further trauma. Back at the ranger station, she recounted the night's horrific events in fragmented sentences, eyes wide with lingering terror. The authorities exchanged uneasy glances, quietly dismissing her claims of a monstrous, humanoid, wolf-like creature. Peter's death was officially recorded as a brutal animal attack, most likely a rogue grizzly bear or an unusually aggressive wolf. Any further talk of the creature she described was met with polite skepticism. Days passed in a numbing blur as MacKenzie found herself escorted back to Canada, still unable to fully process the nightmare she had lived through. Family and friends surrounded her, offering tearful condolences and sympathetic embraces, yet none could comprehend the darkness gripping her soul. At Peter's funeral, she stood quietly beside his freshly dug grave, listening numbly as words of comfort were whispered around her. His family wept quietly, grieving the son and brother they had loved. MacKenzie remained silent, eyes locked onto the casket as it slowly lowered into the earth. The finality of the moment crushed her, stealing away what little remained of her strength. Long after everyone else departed, MacKenzie lingered alone at the graveside. The gentle sound of leaves overhead reminded her cruelly of Alaska, of that beautiful wilderness that had promised a lifetime of dreams, but instead delivered unspeakable horror. She sank slowly to her knees, the crushing weight of loss overwhelming her completely. In the quiet solitude of that Canadian cemetery, MacKenzie's mind replayed the horrific events beneath Denali's midnight sky. She knew authorities would never believe her, that she would forever bear this nightmarish truth alone. Peter had died violently, ruthlessly torn apart by something that defied logic and reason, a creature that should not exist but did. And although she had survived physically unharmed, something within MacKenzie had died that night too, lost forever and the darkness beneath those cruel amber eyes. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Descent into the Unknown for more horror content. If you have any real cryptid encounters, or you're a horror writer wanting to share your stories, please feel free to email me in the description anytime.